She's Reagan Reese, the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, and she joins us now. Hello, Reagan. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so obviously, huge question. A lot of conservatives want to know what has changed since 2020, and you've been digging into this. Give us a sense of what you've discovered.
Yeah, a lot of conservatives want to know, and a lot of conservatives are concerned. And despite the efforts of the RNC and its partners in this large field of election integrity organizations, things in their current state are shaping up to look a lot like 2020. There's at least 7 swing states that are slated to deploy ballot drop boxes. Nearly all are likely to have no excuse absentee voting. 5 swing states are on track to have more than 2 weeks of early voting. And the RNC is making an effort alongside of its partners at the NRCC and the NRSC. But despite filing 79 lawsuits, there's still these states with key concerns.
Is there a centralized effort to address each of these state election integrity efforts, or is it kind of scattershot right now across the country? What's going on in terms of the organization here?
Yeah, so the left has a more organized effort. Mark Elias is that name that we know that the Democrats have deployed to kind of lead the effort. When I, directly asked the RNC, is there a Mark Elias of the right? The answer was no, that this is more of just a robust effort on the right. There are nonprofit organizations who are going to tackle their areas. And then the RNC, the NRSC, and the NRCC are partnering up and, bankrolling this effort to tackle the states that they see to be a problem. So it does look to be more of this scattershot. There were organizations who brought up to me who were just kind of on their fight on their own, True the Vote being one, who had no idea what the RNC was doing, despite being in this election integrity battle with them.
Wow, how interesting. So obviously the RNC just underwent a leadership change as Ronald McDaniel left, and now we have is Michael Whatley, who comes in from North Carolina to lead the Republican National Committee now. Have you noticed any change in terms of their attitudes around this issue with the change in leadership?
Yeah, I think with the new leadership right now, it's kind of hard to get a complete read on it because there's my read is that there's a bit of a transition period. There was a bit of confusion over whether the election integrity staff had been laid off. There was an earlier report that they had. And then yesterday, I spoke to both Trump officials and RNC officials who said that's not true at all. But when I did get to speak with an RNC official yesterday, he told me that they're already starting to rebrand, that there's a lot more voices in the room about how they're approaching election integrity. Laura Trump today announced that Scott Pressler is going to be leading up this legal ballot chasing vote. So there's already seeming to be more of excitement around the effort.
Yeah, interesting. So I have some audio here. I'll play some of this. Laura Trump was on with our friend Benny Johnson earlier today and indicated that they are taking election integrity very seriously here. Let me see if I can't get this audio for you. Here is Laura Trump earlier today.
So at the RNC, it is something that we're taking incredibly seriously. We have the first ever election integrity division. This is an entire wing of the building dedicated solely to that. So how do you do that? Right now, you just talked about a lawsuit we have in Michigan. We have in 23 states, 78 lawsuits single-handedly to address this issue, to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat in 2024. We know about all the states who illegally changed their voting laws in 2020 under the guise of COVID. It flips some of those back around, but it also adds an extra layer of protection on top of that. In addition, we now have the ability to train poll workers. These are not just poll watchers, people who physically stand in a polling location and kind of look around and maybe might be able to see something. These are people, Benny, who get to handle a ballot, who can count the ballots coming in and the ballots going out, so they know what the numbers should be at the end of the day. On top of that, we are also hiring and we are asking for volunteer attorneys all across this country. We want you in a polling location near you every single minute that there is voting going on.
So this all sounds encouraging, but it also, I should note, we're only, how many months away now from the election. And this is the kind of thing that could have been happening in more earnest since 2020. What's been happening since 2020? Why did it take this long?
Oh, man, Vince, Republicans are 40 years behind. The RNC was subjected to a consent decree in 1982 after the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, sued them and kind of neutered their ability to really chase down this election integrity effort. That lifted in 2018. And then when I asked the RNC kind of why the holdup, because they didn't really begin this election integrity effort until 2022, they said before that it was just a proof of concept, and that was what this, their efforts were a proof of concept is how they explained it to me. And then in 2023, former chairman Ronna McDaniel moved to make the election integrity department or the election integrity an actual department of the RNC, allowing them to get more funding, pull different resources. And so I think it's pretty fair to say that this effort really only began a year ago.
Interesting. So I understand in your coverage, you point out that there are a number of organizations that are a part of this. And you just said that, in fact, the RNC, the National Republican Congressional Committee, the NRCC, as well as the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the NRSC. In your reporting, you had a conversation with somebody at the NRCC by the name of Will Reinert, is featured prominently in your article this morning, who seemed to dismiss this entire topic out of hand. What happened here?
Yeah, so in some ways it's easy to understand why we still have laws where there are interesting, we still have states that have interesting laws in place, because a lot of Republicans are also focused on, kind of playing by Democrats' rules. So we reached out to the NRCC after finding out that they were, working hand in hand with the RNC on this effort. And they sent back an Axios link about their get out to vote efforts, and told me it would be great background information. And when we called that out as lazy, Will responded and said, quote, "We've complained about your coverage several times to editors. So to tell you the truth, we really don't care to engage on pieces we don't care about to help you guys out," end quote. And so that was just the explanation that they seem to not care about election integrity efforts and are instead focusing on this get out to vote effort.
It's maddening. It's totally maddening. And so meanwhile, like the Republican base, this is the one thing they've been asking for, as right? I mean, you have people across the country going, I just want an election that's believable, credible, that has integrity, that accurately counts the vote. That's all I want. And you have people who are a part of the establishment Republican Party who are literally just like shrugging that off, apparently.
Yeah, it's a real concern because we've seen a lot of chatter around this. I mean, we see a ton of talk from former President Trump about this issue, and Americans are concerned. And then to see one of the arms who is, reportedly working hand in hand with the RNC and pouring millions into this is kind of just, mailing it in when a reporter who wants to kind of broadcast their efforts is coming to them with an interview request. Yeah.
No, you're totally right. That's disheartening. But again, the change in leadership at the RNC, they seem to be taking very seriously the idea that election integrity is important, and so I guess we'll see in the weeks ahead whether or not they undertake a real effort here. Is this enough time, to leading up to the November elections? Do they have enough time legally to deal with all these issues, whether it be ballot drop boxes or absentee ballots or any other issues across the country?
That's another great question that I think we're going to see kind of unravel in the coming months. They told me that they plan to file 100 lawsuits in this election cycle before November. So there clearly is an indication with the RNC that there is more time to overturn some laws and make some changes. They just filed one in Michigan surrounding voter rolls yesterday. So, there's still efforts that are ongoing, which indicates to me that there is still a chance to make a play in these states.
All right. Reagan Reese, White House correspondent over at the Daily Caller. Thank you for your in-depth coverage today. Great piece over on the Daily Caller. where I should point out, as always, I'm also an editor there as well. Reagan, thank you very much. Good to talk to you.